Well, guys, it is 6 o'clock. I know we have a few other members that may come on, but I want to honor your time as well as our speaker's time. And so, on behalf of the Lone Star Rotary E Club, I want to welcome you to our August 15th meeting, 2015. I'll call this meeting to order. We are recording the call, and we will be publicizing this on our website and Facebook page as well. Appreciate everybody being here. With a Rotary moment, let's start off with, does anybody have any good news they'd like to share from their family or from their community? Anything good for your community?
We've enjoyed our grandson being here this week.
And you're probably glad that school's back to school, so that your grandson is
his school starts Monday. He and I went to the pool today. We enjoyed it. Fantastic. Anybody else? The good news I have is the volunteer work I did this past month with the food bank of Sulphur, Louisiana. They said that they had raised a record amount, not because of my efforts, but because of the efforts of the whole community. But we'd had a big food drive, a summer drive to replenish to get the fall back started in the Sulphur, Louisiana area. So I was real pleased to hear that announcement when that email came across. That was kind of exciting. So
with that, Sulphur near Orange,
Sulphur, Louisiana. Yes, it's about 20 miles from here. Yeah, where I work. Our offices are in Hackberry, just right outside of. That's where our offices are at.
So, I have a bit of good news.
Yeah,
it happened a few weeks ago. My women's organization, the Links, we donated blood pressure cups to the main hospital and 3 of the county hospitals in Liberia.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
So the ambassador of Liberia notified us and sent us pictures of the donations. And so it went to the hospitals, to the actual nursing staff. And then it also went to the counties and then some of the nursing and medical students. So they had enough there for that.
Tina, that's wonderful.
That is fantastic. Well, I will turn it over to our program chair this week, which is Chuck. And Chuck, I'll let you introduce our speakers. I'm gonna ask everybody else if you don't mind muting your microphones so that we can hear our speaker. And Chuck, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you all of you for joining us this evening. I'd like to thank Mike Navolia for joining us. Mike is a very interesting individual. I think I can bond with him because I also have 2 STEM degrees. He's a geophysicist, though, not an engineer, although he did study in his undergraduate days engineering geoscience, I believe. Or maybe that was your master's. But anyhow, he's a proud graduate of the University of Berkeley, Golden Bear, which is a long ways away from the Baylor Bears here in Texas. And he is now a retired geophysicist working in E&P. And when he wasn't retired, and I think you were a E&P seismologist for 43 years or something like that, Mike?
Yes, that's
right. Yeah. And he is the president and founder of the Clean Water Climb. He's taken how many? 17 teams to the summit? Is this one? He just came back from a climb to Africa's highest peak, and it's the world's highest standing freestanding mountain. He is also a board member for Child Legacy International, and he is, as we heard earlier, married to a wife of a good number of years. How long have you and your wife been married?
52.
52. So he probably has the record of most of us on this call. I'm certainly going to rise to the challenge. I've only been married 41 years, but I'll see if I can make it to 52 or longer. I have a family history. My father and mother were married for 72 years, and I don't know if I'll make that, but maybe I'll make 52 or more. But in any event, we have just a very quick story that Mike and I met each other through Mike's efforts more than mine. He tried to track me down at my law office because we have a mutual friend that I've stayed in touch with for over the 40 years, a man by the name of Dudley White, who was in engineering school with me at the University of Virginia. And Mike met Dudley while hiking through the Smoky Mountains. And he said to him, to Dudley, that he lived in the woodlands. And Dudley said, well, you need to contact Chuck Meyer. He's a good friend of mine. And I was in the market for a speaker for this evening. And so I had coffee with Mike and twisted his arm, and he's here tonight because he sought me out, and little did he know I was seeking him out too. So with that introduction, Mike, it's over to you. Fill in the gaps from your resume and everything else. Please welcome Mike Navolia.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Chuck. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. I'm always looking for opportunities to share what we're doing in Malawi, Africa, and how this whole clean water climb started, and what, the part that, it's part of child legacy. And anyway, I have an interesting story, I think. And so, I'm going to talk a little bit about the water problem. You probably already all know that, being Rotary, but I want to kind of go over some quick statistics with you. So I'm going to hit share screen, and let's see if my PowerPoint pops up. There it is. Okay. And I will go to presentation mode. And anyway, so yes, my name is Mike, and I have a BS and MS in engineering geoscience from those 2 years at Cal. And I was in 75, right out of college. I started in the oil and gas industry as a seismologist. However, I thought I was going to be a minerals exploration guy, because the engineering geoscience master's program was all about searching for new deposits of copper and all that kind of stuff. So, but some of you may know and remember that the Arab oil embargo was going on a couple of years before that. And the oil companies were desperate for geophysicists, and even if you weren't a geophysicist yet. So they would take engineers and physicists and math majors and geologists, and they would train them to be geophysicists, petroleum seismologists. And so that's what I did. And then the mining industry crashed about the same time I was in, I had been at work for 5 years and loving it. And I thought, well, I guess that was a good decision, was to go with the oil and gas industry instead of the mining industry. So, and yes, I am the founder of Clean Water Climb and president, and we'll go into that some more later. But that's my contact information down there if anybody wants more information. And so here's my talk outline. I'm going to talk a little bit about worldwide poverty and something called the Human Development Index, and who child legacy is. They have this 4-pronged approach to sustainability. How do you bring sustainability to extremely poor regions in our world? And of course, and one of those prongs is water, and that's what I'll be focusing on, obviously. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about, what is the contaminated water impact in worldwide, Africa, and Malawi. And then I'm going to talk about these 4 short-term mission trips I went on to Kenya, Sudan, and then twice to Malawi before this whole thing gelled, this idea to create this Clean Water Climb gelled. I had an aha moment on an airplane in 2010. And we started the Kilimanjaro Clean Water Climb then in 2011. I'm going to go through a typical Clean Water Climb trip for you. I call it now Prairie Peak and Purpose, and you'll see why. But the prairie part is getting over jet lag. Hey, let's just go on a safari. Let's get over this 8-hour time difference between Central Time anyway and Tanzania, and then also get acclimated to start the hike. And that's the peak part. And then after the peak part, we go down to Malawi and fix water wells, right? But the whole idea is raising money for clean water in Malawi. That's why we call it Clean Water Climb. We just don't go hike the mountain for nothing, right? And then we've expanded to other continents outside of Africa now. We do hikes almost on every continent. We're expanding into Europe next year for the first time. And then what are the results? So what kind of results has the Clean Water Climb produced, and its overall impact on Child Legacy's ministry? And then who some of our community partners are, and then, hey, join a trip, right? So all the photos I'm going to show you, except for these, the aerial shots of what Child Legacy's project looks like in Malawi. are from our trips. And most of them, I think, are my photos, or maybe a few others in there, but most of them, again, except for the aerials. So here's a little bit about human develop. I need to my little title up there. How do I move this little bar up here? It says this meeting is being live streamed, and it's covering up my title of my slide. Does anybody know how to do that?
All right, I don't see it. I know there's
We're,
a,
well, we're seeing the title of the slide, I
You
think.
see the title. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
I
we
don't
see.
see it, so it's not going to prompt me necessarily to say exactly the right thing that I would say, but that's okay. So anyway, HDI is based on lifespan, education, and per capita income. And this is something that the United Nations did in 2018. It's probably been updated a little bit since then, but the darkest greens are the highest human development index. And then as you get into the oranges and the reds and purple, or brown, those are the lowest, right? So you can see the US and Canada, some places in Europe, Australia, I have the highest. But if you notice, there's a huge anomaly right in the middle of the map, and it's Africa. And so much of Africa is very underdeveloped, somewhat in Asia as well, too, as you can see. So that's kind of what, and one of the, access to clean water is one of the keys to development. Let's see what's going on here. There we go. Okay. So focusing in on Africa now, Child Legacy International, and I'm just be using CLI. It's much easier and quicker. They're working to try to increase HDI in Zimbabwe and Malawi. And Malawi is this, they're both landlocked countries. Malawi's right there, and there's a lake right next to it, which I think in the future is one of the answers to their issue of poverty. But unless you know Elon Musk or somebody like that has the money, nothing's ever going to happen. But anyway, so that's Malawi. It's a long, skinny country. They call it the calendar country. It's 365 miles long and 52 miles wide at the widest spot. So it's 52 weeks times 365 days. Zimbabwe is here. You can see Malawi is a little worse off than Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe used to actually be the breadbasket of Africa, but then Mugabe took over and everything changed. Okay, so Child Legacy is taking this, like I said, four-pronged holistic approach to improving this Human Development Index. This is their logo, and I'm going to talk just a little bit about that. So their focus is on education and training, food and farming, quality healthcare, and clean water. And all the work that they're doing in Malawi at this particular project site is 100% powered by renewable energy, because there's no power lines, there's no plumbing, there's no natural gas. I mean, there's nothing, right? Except for forests, which have been mostly cut down, unfortunately. So this is what the project looked like in January of 2019. Which is looking pretty good. We have guest facilities. We're doing a lot of fish farming, some orchards here. There's a church out there. You can see a village has kind of sprung up. That village was not there in 2010. Here's a big medical complex. We have a hospital, surgery center, birthing center, and medical clinic, which is like for people walking in, hey, I may have malaria kind of thing. This is a large solar bank right here. And so there's some staff housing here, a couple water wells on the project site, corn. Oops, I don't know how that happened. Okay, there we go. So this is a little bit more recent. And again, I can't see it because it's cut off on the side here. I wonder if there's a way to move everybody over. Oh yeah, look at that. I can. So I can at least move you over to the side on my screen. Nope, it just goes back. Maybe minimize. There we go. Okay, so this is kind of zoomed in a little bit. This shows some new things that weren't there in a year and a half before this. Coffee. We're planting a lot of coffee, macadamia trees, and bamboo. And you might ask, well, why bamboo? Well, it turns out that this country is almost completely deforested. And the reason is, like I said earlier, no natural gas, come into your house to cook food. Really, you literally have to cut trees down to cook your food. Or get charcoal, which also involve trees, right? So bamboo, the idea was there's this tissue culture from Indonesia where the bamboo grows huge, really fast. And you can use these parabolic mirrors to focus the sun's energy and turn the bamboo into charcoal. Well, it hasn't worked. We have about 20,000 plants. It hasn't really worked out yet because everybody that brings sticks of wood and charcoal into the country from Mozambique and surrounding countries, they're going to those countries and they're just cutting everything down and stealing it. And you can't compete financially with somebody that's selling something that they basically stole. So we don't know what's going to happen with the bamboo, but the macadamias, turns out Malawi, of all places in the world, is the third largest producer of macadamia nuts. We have 30,000 trees planted right now. And so this is a little more recent. The macadamias are down here at the bottom, and as well as here, and the coffee there. Now, and there's the church, and we have a mother shelter. Okay, so you can't just expect women to show up and give birth at the last second, right? So they have to have a place to stay. So we've got a pretty sizable mother shelter right here. So they may come a week or two. We have a complete program for pregnant women that are, so they check them out physically and everything. And so they can get a pretty good idea when the baby's going to be born. And so that's why we have this mother shelter. So they can come a week or two before and being taken care of. A little more zoomed in on the medical here compared to the last one. There's some solar right there, some solar right here, guest housing. So we have a nice place to visit if you ever want to come to Malawi and see firsthand and get the tour. This is a little more recent picture. This is from November of just this last year. And I probably should go back a little bit. Like right there, okay, it's very green looking, right? Well, that's the rainy season, January. This is October, the dry season. So you can see and this is June, also the dry season. You see a world of a difference. And this is part of the problem with Malawi not having a reliable source of water. Literally, they plant their little corn seeds in October or November, hoping that they're going to have a rainy season. And if they don't have a rainy season, there's going to be a lot of starvation. Also, I want to point out, you see, there's a clump of trees right there that you wonder, okay, why are those trees there? Well, that's a cemetery, and they don't cut the trees down in the cemeteries. So, and there's a kind of an ancient pagan religion there where they go into the cemeteries and they do ancestor worship. So that's just another side fact. We have 30,000 macadamias now, and the goal is 50,000. And when we have 50,000 mature macadamia trees, we will not have to ask for a penny to run this medical facility. Right now, the government, I think, gives us $47,000 a month. So the government of Malawi loves what we do, right? This is like a bright and shining star in their country, plus all the water well repairs, which we'll get into. But they love what we do, so they literally support us with almost $50,000 a month. Okay. Going back in time, this is a Google Earth picture. I found this on the internet. This is what our project looked like in 2010. So I'm going to circle it with my cursor. Can you guys see my cursor? Hopefully. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear. Yes,
Okay,
yes, it looks great.
Okay, very good. So anyway, that's what Child Legacy looked like in 2010. Look at the intersection down here of these two dirt roads. You don't see anything, right? Okay, I'm gonna jump to 2020. This is exactly the same scale. This is where the church is. That wasn't there in 2010. This whole village has sprung up between 2010 and 2020 because there's free medical care here and there's jobs. We employ at least 250, maybe 300 people now at this project, all local people, right? So this is one of the heartbeats of Child Legacy is jobs, education and jobs. If you can train somebody to have a job, they can provide for their family and they can be a productive member of society. So we're doing all kinds of training here. We do sewing ministry training to HIV widows. And then we give them we give them a sewing machine, foot pump, obviously, no electricity. There's all kinds of programs we're doing right now to help educate people. So now I'm going to focus on the Clean Water Program, which Child Legacy started in 2008. So that's the blue logo right there, the blue part of the logo. So These are the statistics. Oh, and I can't read it because it's being covered up by this bar. I'm just going to say, you can read it. So I think it says about 1 billion people lack access to clean drinking water in the world, about 300 million people in Africa alone. However, about a year or two ago, and this was from the World Health Organization, a year or two ago, I read a recent statistic that's down to 750 million people now. So not Child Legacy and all the other organizations throughout the world that are doing water ministry are having an impact. I mean, just think about it. The population of the earth is going up, but the number of people without access to clean water is going down. So there's a lot of organizations doing great work. Okay, and about 25,000 people die every day from diseases related to contaminated water. That's from WHO. And these are all pictures that I've taken. This is a typical alternative water source, where it's just a hand dug hole, and it's protected, quote unquote, with these logs. And then when they pull the pail up, the rope just lays there on the ground, right? So it's definitely contaminated. Here's another example, almost looks exactly the same. It's a different village. 5 million people, children a year die in the world from contaminated water. And then 1.4 million of those are diarrhea related. And so here's another water source when their well's broken. So when the well's broken, they have to find water somewhere. And sometimes they'll walk a long distance, or sometimes they'll just dig a hole nearby because it's just too far, right? About 1 in, does it say 3 people lacking access to clean water survive on less than $1 a day. So obviously this is very poverty related, and more people, I can't read it, die from water related disease. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is interesting. When I read this, more people die from water related diseases than in any given year than all wars put together. Who hears about that? All we hear about in the news are wars, right? Or natural disasters. Same thing. More people die from water-related diseases in any given year than all natural disasters put together. It's never in the news, yet it's terrible when you think about it. So about 25% of the time, I think is what it says. Again, it's blacked out by this bar. Spend time, 25% of their time is fetching water, sometimes walking, up to almost 4 miles to get water. So in 2008, a person got introduced to Child Legacy. They weren't doing water wells in Zimbabwe. They were doing medical. They have an orphanage over there, and they were doing a lot of other related things, but they weren't doing water wells. And so, but then they kind of got kicked out of Zimbabwe, quote unquote. They didn't really get kicked out, but they had to leave, right? Because Mugabe took over. It's now all run by Zimbabweans. They do report to Child Legacy, but there's no white people there at all. It's all Zimbabweans. And we have a wonderful lady there who runs the whole Zimbabwean program. She went through their school and ended up now runs the thing. So she's a bright and shining star. Very interesting story with her that her husband died of AIDS, and yet she never contracted it. So that's almost a miracle when you think about it. But so they left Zimbabwe, and then they came to the States, but they wanted to get back into Malawi and back into Africa. So they approached the Malawian government. They did some research. They had made some trips to various countries and decided, man, this place is so poor. And my talk could go long. So at some point, somebody needs, I say, I've got 5 minutes left.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Okay, so they formed a team, and these are the 4 guys that whenever I take people there every year, we go out to these villages with them, and I always bring them a T-shirt and a hat or something. But this was a village that we visited in 2021, and the people were so happy and had a little speech for us and everything after the well was finished. So how did I get involved in all this? So this is the part where I'm going to tell you my story. So I went on my first short-term mission trip. My wife and I had never been on anything like that before. Our church decided they were going to go to Africa in 2007. And I think, it was a big church, and they had these little cards, and you would fill out that you were interested in going on this Africa trip, and there were going to be 3 parts to it. They were going to do something with some churches that are in the slums of Nairobi. And if you've never been to a slum, in one of these African countries, or maybe even other countries in the world, like in South America, Asia, whatever. I mean, it's just unbelievable, right? But anyway, they were going to do some projects with a couple of churches, and they were going to go visit water wells. And of course, I knew nothing about either of these things. I'd never been in a slum, and I'd never seen a water well. And I just thought water wells were when you had a drought, right? That's all I knew about water wells. But then they were going to go on a safari. And I thought, oh, they're going to go on a safari. I think we should go on this trip. So we were 57 years old. And we later found out that 600 people signed up for this thing for information. And then when they found out that they had to pay to go on the trip, it dropped down to 40 and eventually ended up just being 13 of us. So, but the safari was incredible. This is Lake Nakuru in Kenya. But the safari wasn't life-changing, right? It was just a beautiful thing to see. The Nairobi slums was very touching, because we built relationships with some of these pastors and stuff in these churches, and wanted to help them and encourage them and pray for them in their ministry. And so you saw this utter despair on the one side, but then you had these little beacons of hope in the slums. And so I made some great friends on that very first trip that I'm still in contact with. So it's an amazing place to go. Okay, then we were going to go visit these water wells. And so we headed east off of from Nairobi. Nairobi's about the same elevation as Denver. So you're on a plateau, and it's about 5,280 feet, just like Denver. And then you drive east towards the Indian Ocean about 6 hours. So we're driving along, and all of a sudden we go over this dry riverbed, and there's like hundreds of people digging in the sand. So I asked our host. It was our host for that part of the trip was a guy from Living Water International, and they do water wells in like 20 countries or something like that. And I said, "What are they doing?" And he said, "They're collecting water." And I said, "Stop the car." And because I wanted to get up close, I wanted to walk down to the riverbed, see what they're doing. So this is what I saw. Literally, they're scooping water. They dug a hole, they down to the water table, scooping water out, putting in jerry cans, putting it on donkeys, and walking who knows where. So that was the first, and that was not even a planned stop, right? That just happened. I mean, I can tell you from my own personal point of view, it was providential. And so we went to this planned location, which was where a well had just been drilled, and they were testing it to see how productive it was. And we go over there, and there's this man cupping his hands and pouring water on this boy's head. And we later found out this was his son. And we wanted to interview him through a translator. You know, Swahili is the language there. And I said, "Well, how far did you have to go for water before this well was drilled?" And he said 20 kilometers. And I just couldn't believe it. So, and then I realized that clean water brings hope for people. I mean, just think your whole life is centered around walking to get water. And then it might not even be good water. I mean, go back, this is not good water. I mean, you don't see the donkeys in this picture, but there were donkeys very close by. And so you know that this water is contaminated. And so clean water brings hope for today, right? And then we went to the second planned location, which was where there was a rig, and they were getting ready to spud this well. And I realized, okay, I saw the problem in the riverbed, and then I saw the solution, but then I saw, oh, gee, it takes money. That's a baobab tree, by the way. If anybody's been to Africa or doesn't know about baobabs, they're incredible trees. So there's this huge rig here, and then all of a sudden, while we're talking, this group of students, little kids in their school uniforms, very dusty, dirty uniforms, comes walking down the dusty road, right? And they're looking up at this rig, and they're just like mesmerized by it. And one of the guys from the rig he opens up his Bible and starts talking to him. And so I thought, this is interesting. The living water would bring hope for eternity, right? And so what I learned from that trip was there was a problem with water in a lot of places, especially in Kenya. It's rare and it's contaminated when you find it most of the time. And the solution was you got to have a water well. And so I came to the conclusion that I needed to get involved. Okay, what's in front of me? Am I supposed to do something? So I was convicted. I knew I had to get involved. But what were my gifts? Well, what could I bring to the table? Now, I was employed in the oil and gas industry. I didn't retire till 2018, which was 11 years after this trip. So I had, part of my involvement was just, okay, I'm just going to start contributing towards water wells, right? Financially, I couldn't necessarily leave my job and be gone for a long time. But and I also discovered it's not about me. It was about God, because I thought it was about me, hey, we're going to go on a safari. Wow. I mean, it was really selfish when you think about it, but I found out that wasn't the reason to go. So what was next? Okay, I realized I needed to give. There was more to learn. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I needed to go back. And so I went on a second trip. And this time it was a friend that found out that acquaintance. Let's just say more of an acquaintance than a friend, a close friend right now. A friend said, hey, you should check out what Aid Sudan is doing in Sudan. You should go. So I did. And the goals were to repair broken water wells. And actually, there was a second goal in there, and the third one would be the gospel part. But the second goal was there were also going to be veterinarians on this trip that were going to help with diseases in the cattle camps. The Sudanese are just, their whole life is surrounded, is encompassed with cattle. We own homes, they own cattle. That's their livelihood, that's their wealth, is in their animals. So that was actually another one. I should have put that in there. But then we had to memorize Bible stories. Well, I'd never done anything like that before. And we had to share these Bible stories at these water well repairs and in the cattle camps. So anyway, so there's our team. This was 2009. So literally it was 2 years after that first trip that I got to go back to Africa. 2008 was a lot of violence in Kenya after a presidential election. There was a bunch of, the people thought and it was very stunning because something like that had not happened in Kenya before. So anyway, the church decided, wait, not safe to go back. So let's just wait. So we didn't go in 2000. I didn't get to go anywhere in 2008. And so 2009, though, I get to go on this trip, and to get where we were going, you had to be in a small plane. And this is just a picture from the air of a Sudanese village with their huts. And we stayed basically in this compound. These were our accommodations, and you can see some of the Sudanese people with us there. And they're very tall. This is this is northern this very southern end of Sudan, and the people that live here are of the Dinka tribe. They're like among the tallest and darkest people in the world. They're unbelievably tall. This was our water. And this was an actual working well, so that was good. We didn't have to, but we still filtered the water just to be safe, right? And these were our guards. I had no idea that we were going into a dangerous place until I got there. And this is one of the cattle camps. I mean, this lady's milking this cow, and the cattle camps were absolutely fascinating to me. Absolutely fascinating. Here's one of our members of our team. He's sharing a Bible story. It's getting translated. This is a typical village water well repair. These were pretty deep, and so it required quite a bit of effort. You had to have these tools to grab onto the pipe and pull it out, right? So these are deeper wells than Malawi. And then you test it after you've put it all back together, and then also to share a Bible story at a water well repair. And then there was an opportunity to go to a wedding. Look at this gal's name was Rebecca. And I think her spelling of her name was the same as my daughter, Rebekah. But anyway, we were going to a wedding, and these people gathered around us, and I said, "Can I share a Bible story?" So I did, and she translated it. So what did I learn on that trip? So this is trip number 2. There are thousands of broken water wells in the developing world. Before I went on this trip, I had no idea they break. But then when you think about it, everything man makes breaks, right? What doesn't break? Your air conditioning breaks, your cars break, everything breaks. Water wells break. So even though somebody's spent $10,000 or $5,000 drilling a water well, eventually it's probably going to break and need some refurbishing, right? But it's a whole lot cheaper to refurbish a broken well than it is to drill a new one. So if you're limited on your resources, but about 25% less. If you have a choice between drilling a new well and fixing 4 wells, you want to spend them, and you have limited resources. Obviously, you want to do the repairs. And when you bring clean water to people, it opens up the opportunity to share about God, and we share through these memorized Bible stories. And it turned out it's very impactful. I had no idea. But you also come back realizing you have way too much stuff. I have way too much stuff and I need to do something about it. It was just a few days after the Sudan trip. I was driving down the Hardy Toll Road here in the Houston area to work at Greens Point from the Woodlands. And I just started crying. I have no idea why. And I think it was reverse culture shock. I was only gone 10 days, but I had what they call reverse culture shock. You get used to that culture and you come back and you go, man, this place is crazy, right? All these paved roads. There was no paved roads down there. There was no plumbing and electricity, none of that. So I went on a third trip and it was the same year and got invited by the senior pastor of this big church who was a good friend of mine who I'd gotten acquainted with. And my friend told him, because he wanted to take his family and some of his staff to Kenya. He had never been to Africa before. And so we got invited, and my friend said, Carrie Shook, I would love to have you on this trip. So my wife and four of our friends and six of us went with them to Kenya. But then before the trip, my friend said, "Why don't you meet the Rogers with Child Legacy International? After you finish with the Kenya part, go to Malawi, meet the Rogers with Child Legacy International. Maybe they'll take you out to a village water well repair," because he had heard that I'd been on the Sudan trip. So I literally thought, I have no idea where Malawi is. I've never heard of Malawi. I never heard of CLI, and I don't know these people. But the magic words were well repair, because I had just done that 2 or 3 months ago in Sudan. And so I talked to Jennifer and I talked to our four friends, and everybody was in. So literally it was like adding an extra 3 or 4 days is all. I mean, if you're going to be in Africa and there's an opportunity, somebody that you respect, who's got a lot of experience, is more mature than you, gives a suggestion, it's a really good idea to listen, because it changed my life. So whenever you go anywhere where there's kids in poor countries like Africa, and like Kenya or Malawi, this is in Malawi, they just love visitors. They want to play with you. They want to do. They may not have ever seen a Mzungu. That's Swahili and Chichewa. Chichewa is the language of Malawi. Very similar. Mzungu is a white person, so they'll say Mzungu, Mzungu, and and they'll come running and they want their pictures taken with you. So this is Jeff Rogers. He's like 6'5" or something like that. And then so we go to this village and we're playing. Some of us are playing with the kids, and then he shows me this hand dug well. At least they have bricks, but still it's contaminated. If you look closely, there's the pail, there's the bucket, and there's the rope, and then that's just laying there in the dirt, right? And they lower that down and pull up the water, so it's contaminated. This is so he was Jeff Rogers is the co-founder, and this is Corrine Rogers, his wife, and I should say ex-wife. So but that's a whole nother story. They're still really good friends, and she just got burned out in Africa, I think. I don't know what happened, but anyway. This is the water well. I actually looked younger back then. Interesting. And so some of the people are distracting the kids from what we're doing so they don't get too close and, get injured or something like that. And then, Child Legacy always teaches hygiene as well as share a Bible story or something like that. So, while the well's being repaired by part of the crew, another crew member is talking to the people in the village. And you see there's like probably 40 people there. And so I thought, well, gee, maybe I should share a Bible story I learned for Sudan. And so I shared about the prophecies of the Messiah coming and his birth and his early ministry. But my heart was beating. I thought, this is crazy. I've never done anything like this before. I really hadn't ever. The Sudan thing was, you did it there, but it was smaller groups. This was a big group of people. And then after the story, I really got convicted, and I really had to, I was arguing with God in my head, do they want to pray, in response to the story? And I kept saying to God, no, they're not going to be interested. But I said something to this crewman right here. I said, ask if they want to pray. And so he did, and they all get up and they surrounded me. We prayed. So it's like, it was unbelievable. I tell everybody it's like one of the most impactful moments of my life. So at every water well, there's always a celebration. This was that very first well. So that my very first village well repair in Malawi was this one. I think I've been to about somewhere between 85 and 90 water well repairs now. And not just villages, right? Schools, medical clinics, trading centers, mosques, churches. I mean, it doesn't matter. If the people need water, there's no condition. There's no condition to fixing their well. All we have to have is the money to buy the parts and do the work, right? There's nothing they have to do at all. They like to get in there involved in fixing the well, so they learn, but then, the well doesn't break for another 5 or 10 years. Who's going to remember how to fix it? And they certainly don't have the resources. So somebody once said to me, if you walked up to a river somewhere and there were a bunch of babies in the river floating down the river, what are you going to do? Are you going to go rescue the babies? Or are you going to go upstream and try to figure out how to solve the problem, permanently? And I think I see myself, and Child Legacy sees itself, especially on the side of the water, is we're rescuing the babies. We don't have an answer, the big answer. How do you tap into the Lake Malawi for that water, the third largest lake in Africa, that's also filled with 1,000 species of freshwater fish that are unique in the world to that lake? So obviously you've got environmental issues, but if you could tap into that lake safely, had the money, and the government didn't want to take a big handout, and you had the environmentalists were happy with the plan, and you got a good engineering firm, you could turn Malawi into the breadbasket of Africa. You really could. So I'm still waiting one day for somebody to tell me, I know Jeff Bezos, I know Elon Musk, because it has to start with somebody with the funds, right? And then you present the idea. But anyway, what I learned from this trip is, consider the advice of mature, experienced people who said, why don't you go to Malawi and meet the Rogers, and maybe they'll take you out to a water well. So be flexible with plans as opportunities arise. And people in desperately poor countries are desperate for hope, not for today and for eternity, and to leave your comfort zone. I went to a talk at a conference, and there was this African doctor named Bumba Bubila, and she gave an incredible talk. She was a doctor in the capital of Zambia, which is Lusaka. And one day she just felt led to go out into the rural part of Zambia and start a clinic. And everybody told her she was crazy, but it turned out to be extremely successful. And so she said in the talk, you will never know your true potential unless you leave your comfort zone. I just had a Zoom conference with somebody, and behind him on the wall was a plaque that said, staying comfortable is a slow death. Right? Your death is, so don't want to be comfortable all the time. We got to keep moving, got to keep doing, and leaving your comfort zone. But anyway, God's clearly working in Malawi. And so I needed to take people to Malawi. I saw what was happening, what Child Legacy was doing. And there's a famous author named Henry Blackaby. He said, just go where God's already working. You don't have to start anything new. Just wherever you see things happening, good things happening, just go there and join that. So I started I said, I couldn't wait to go back to Malawi. And so the next year I started recruiting people. I brought lots of people with me. And this was the aha moment. So same kind of things happened with lots of celebration and Bible stories and all that. But on the flight from Nairobi, so now you've gone from a long way Malawi to Nairobi, Kenya, and then to London, and then to Houston. So it was like 4 flights to get home. It was crazy. Normally it doesn't take that many. But a Brit sits next to me, and I don't think he's even totally sitting in his seat yet. And he first words out of his mouth, what were you doing in Africa? I told him about these 4 trips. And I asked him the same question. And it was like God delivered a message on a silver platter, but I still didn't see it. He said he and 34 of his friends had just climbed Mount Kilimanjaro to raise money for a charity, like a hospital in England. And I thought, well, that's it. I didn't think about the charity side of it that much. I just thought about, oh, that's interesting. Climb Kilimanjaro. And I told him, gee, I'm going to be 60 next year. Maybe I'll climb it on my birthday, and I can get my friends and maybe some family members to go with me. It was all about me. It was all about me. It was my first instinct. But then I was in this Bible study. If you know, I contacted Child Legacy and I said, hey, I'd like to, then I realized, okay, I could do make it a fundraiser at the same time for them. And just like the Brit had done for the hospital, and they were all for it, right? What nonprofit would turn down you doing a fundraiser, right? I mean, it's like a no brainer, right? Yes, do it. And it was going to be on my birthday, summiting. And but then I was in this Bible study to realize, okay, are my plans really, just my plans, or are they God's plans? So I just said to God, I said, I'm done. I'm not doing this. I just totally dismissed the whole thing. I wasn't going to do it at all. But then he spoke in his wee small voice to, no, do it for me. Don't do it for you. So I started this Clean Water Climb, but I moved it off my birthday. And so now you know a little bit of the history. So each of the 4 trips was leading to this point, right? And this man, and I had this aha moment. This is actually taken on an iPhone 4 in 2012. That's one of my favorite all-time aerial pictures of Kilimanjaro. It's surrounded by a permanent cloud layer, semi-permanent, and occasionally it opens up and it moves up and down the mountain with temperature during the day and stuff like that. But it's always got some snow, or it certainly has some glaciers that are gradually melting on the top. But this was sunrise in coming home, or no, leaving Kilimanjaro to go to Malawi in 2012. So there's this quote called "Go up on a high mountain and bring good news." I thought, wow, that's appropriate. So why climb it, right? Why climb Kilimanjaro? Why not do something else? Well, first of all, it raises money to repair wells in Malawi, which brings hope to some of the world's poorest people. And as Chuck said when he was introducing me, it's the highest mountain in Africa at 19,341 feet, and it's the world's tallest freestanding mountain. It's literally a bucket list item for so many people. It's symbolic of the enormity of the water problem, right? It's not an easy hike. It's a hard hike, and you're dependent on the porters and the guides. You have to go with porters and guides because you're with a guide company because it's a national park. You're dependent on them for your water. So in some ways, it's very analogous, at least for the 8 days you're hiking with them. They're providing you the water like we are doing for the people of Malawi. So somewhere between 30 and 50,000 people trek Kilimanjaro every year. And I just need to find a dozen or two, right, to go with me. So, that's my biggest challenge. My biggest challenge is recruiting. The second biggest challenge is fundraising. And the third biggest challenge is training to stay fit and to stay in shape. So in 2011, after these trips, I launched Child Legacy's Mount Kilimanjaro Clean Water Climb. And that's what the logo looked like in 2011. And you'll see in the lower left corner, there's another logo. And in the lower right corner is part of Child Legacy's logo. But a big change happened at the end of 2023 that hopefully, if there's time, I'll get to. So anyway, this is Clean Water Climb started in 2011. And it's still going on, and it's evolved into a 3-part trip called Prairie, Peak, and Purpose. And actually, that should say 17 Kilimanjaro summits. I was trying to update this PowerPoint. I didn't. I obviously missed some of the things. But we start with the Prairie is the acclimatization safari, the Peak is the hike, and the Purpose is bringing clean water to Malawi. And so I'm going to go through a typical trip. The Prairie is getting over jet lag, it's getting acclimated, and it's seeing amazing African animals. And so for a few years, we've been able to stay at Gorogoro Crater Sopa Lodge at 7,800 feet. That's a really good elevation to stay at for a couple of nights because you start the hike a couple days later at 7,800 feet. So this thing has gone, it's sold and it's not operating now. So you have to find something else. This is a view from that lodge. So Gorogoro Crater is a super volcano. It's extinct. It's absolutely massive. You're looking at kind of the rim of it across the way there. And then when you're on the rim, you might see elephants. So at the rim of the crater, which is around 7,800 feet, you drive, for a way. That's where some of the lodges are. There's 3 of them up there. One of them's closed right now, like I said. But in 2014, this enormous elephant came right out of the forest towards us. It was like, oh my gosh, this thing. And then you go down into the crater during the day for the safari part, photo safari, right? It's got the highest concentration of lions in the world. And it's usually almost every time we see lions. This is just a cute picture that I happened to catch with an Egyptian goose walking on top of a hippopotamus. Now there's some other parks. Sometimes we have a second park that we'll go to for a short amount of time, like half day. And this is Lake Manyara, which is not very far from Gorogoro Crater. And also from Lake Manyara, happened to catch that giraffe poking his head out. And then there's Tangiri. Tangiri National Park is famous for its baobab trees, which is baobab is probably the right way to pronounce it. So those are a couple of baobab trees. It also has an awful lot of elephants. They're taking a mud bath there. And then this is a great sunset shot I happened to catch. I was very lucky to get that in Tarangire. And then Arusha National Park is got a lot of giraffes, and you can see how close the people get to them. And they also have flamingos and blue monkeys and baboons and a whole bunch of other animals. So that was the prairie part, the peak. It's one of the 7 summits, right? There's 7 continents if you include Antarctica and Oceania. Oceania is Australia and New Zealand. So it's one of the 7 summits. It's every continent has a highest peak, and this is the highest one in Africa. The guides and porters are amazing. You'll fall in love with them. They're so full of joy. They sing for you all the time. And of course, creation's on display. And the route that I like to do, my favorite route is the 8-day one total. That's up and down. It's about 48 miles, and that 37 hours is like hiking time. That doesn't count breaks for lunch or sleeping at night. No, that's actual hiking time. So, less than a little more than a mile an hour, right? So day 1 I call Monkey Day. Every day I've given a name after all these years, right? You start figuring out what you want to call the day. So the colobus monkeys are pretty common in day 1, and sometimes you'll see them on day 2 as well. And then I call day 2 first sighting day, because day 1 you're in a forest and you don't see the mountain at all. So I call second day first sighting day. Third day I call Harrison Ford Day. Now that's not Harrison Ford, but I like this picture better than the picture I took of Harrison Ford. So we literally passed up Harrison Ford in 2017 in July. Didn't know it until we were past him, and somebody looked back to ask me a question and saw him, and hey, there's Harrison Ford. And his head goes down, and he's with his wife and her son. And we couldn't get near him though. He was totally surrounded by a bunch of guides and porters, so he didn't want to have any interaction with. He probably thought if he went to Kilimanjaro, he would just be totally by himself. No, wrong. So, anyway, that's sunset at Moore Camp, our third night on the trip, and there's almost always incredible sunsets there. Day 4 I call Lava Tower Day, because we literally go up to this outcrop at 15,300 feet, and then we go all the way back down to 13,000 feet. So that's Lava Tower Day. That's a group that's from 2016. And then day 5 I call Barranco Wall Day. Well, that's not a picture of Barranco Wall, but that's my favorite picture from that day, because the Milky Way up there is incredible. So there's our camp, and this is called Karanga Camp, and you can see lights lighting up the clouds from the city below. And then of course this is the Milky Way. And if you look really close, there's a little streak right there. I actually got a little meteor in there. Had no idea until I looked at the picture. Day 6 is called Final Base Camp Day, because we actually get to the final base camp before we get to take off for the top. And then day 7 is Summit Night. I call it Summit Night / day, because you start around midnight and it's quite cold. But then when you get to the top, it warms up quite a bit. I'll actually sometimes be up there with just a t-shirt, believe it or not. I mean, it'll go from like 0 at midnight to maybe 40 degrees once you get to the top. Day 8, I call Rainforest Day. It's absolutely, absolutely incredible. And sometimes you'll see monkeys in the rainforest. You come out a different way. You go up one way and you go out a different way on this particular trek. So the purpose, okay, that's bringing hope for today and hope for eternity. It's to bring physical health to people. It's for job empowerment. It's for spiritual health. And my wife and I went on we wanted to visit several ministries we were supporting in 2015. And so we visited several of them, and one of them was Child Legacy. We went out to Waterwell, and I was so lucky to get this picture. I submitted it in the calendar contest at my company, Southwestern Energy. I was still working for them then. And I couldn't believe they put it in the calendar, because all the calendars in the past before that, they never had people's faces. So I guess they couldn't resist this one. Um, Here's a village. I mean, there's just so much joy and singing. And, it's mostly women, because they're the ones that do most of the water work. They're the ones that go collect the water, usually. I mean, sometimes men, but usually it's women, and they scoop it out of the ground and they carry it on their head back to the village. And of course, the kids are incredible. They absolutely love it too. They love us. I think they're more happy about us than the water, because we're such a novelty to them. This particular village in 2018, they just started throwing the water up in the air. I couldn't believe it. And the sun was behind us, so we got that nice enhancement of the water drops. And these are a bunch of people praying. And this was a medical clinic after we shared some Bible stories. So I'm going to show you a little video. I call it an old woman's story. So this will give you an example.
Hold on just a moment, Mike. Kent, are we still good, even though we're at 7? Keep going.
We've got about 5 or 7 minutes.
Oh, 5 or 7 minutes. Okay. Well, let's just do this part then. And so this is a village I visited in can you hear the sound?
No, it cannot.
Oh, well, that's not good. All right. Well, why don't we? So anyway, we wanted to know, where are you getting your water? And so I had to time lapse it because it was pretty far. And then this is a hole that they had dug, and they put cement around the top of it. And yeah, I'm just thinking, obviously it's contaminated, but we have 5 more minutes. I think I'm just gonna, I don't know. I wonder if there's a way to fast forward through this. Oops, it went the wrong way. Okay, let's just skip it because it takes too much time. I wanted to show you a typical clean water climb trip. I think this is like 3 minutes,
Right.
and then so maybe this is worth watching. But you're probably not getting the sound. I don't know how to share the sound. That's because the sound really makes it good.
Yeah.
There's music with it. That's a blue monkey. Those are some hyenas. This is in Goro Crater. So that was the prairie part. This is a hike, obviously. So unlike women in villages, it's men usually that carry our stuff on their heads. This is a little time lapse at Karanga Camp where I showed you that Milky Way shot. And this is another mountain. This is called Mount Meru in the distance from Karanga Camp. A little time lapse there. This is coming up. You can see we're coming up near we're getting close to the summit at dawn. This was a very heavy snow year, and there was still some snow even in September, and that's a glacier there. And then of course we go down to Child Legacy. This is their community hospital. This is going out to the village. So sometimes they like to give you a gift. So in that case, it was a live chicken. We had them for dinner. And this is doing the Bible stories. And this is what their water looked like before we came. I got to figure out how you share sound.
Yeah, I don't have it set
Anyway,
up.
well, this is their well. It was in disrepair, and it was covered up to keep the kids from putting rocks down it. There's a time lapse of a repair. This is from that same village where they were throwing the water up in the air. It's a different village. So that's a banner that we take for our community partners that partner with us. And there's usually always a chase scene at the end. Okay, okay. So I wanted to tell you at least a little bit about statistics. We're doing other mountains now, but jumping down to the middle there, we've raised about through 2023. I'm sorry, and that should say 2023, not 2021. That's another update I need to fix. We raised about a little over $4.25 million through the Clean Water Climb to benefit Child Legacy's work. Here it is right here. That's enabled them to do an extra 3,708 wells benefiting an extra 6.8 million people. We had a milestone in 2021 with the 3,000th water well repaired through the Clean Water Climb. Child Legacy has repaired a total of 5,617. They started in 2008 before we even heard of Child Legacy. This is a map of through 2023. Every little blue and red dot on there is a water well repaired. One well costs about $1,600 and benefits about 1,500 people. There's 5,617 dots on the map. In 2023, late, we decided to split off from Child Legacy and have a new logo. And our new 501c3 has been approved by the IRS. It only took 12 days, like a miracle. And all the money we raise still goes to Child Legacy. We just write them a check every 2 or 3 months. So these are our community partners for 2024. We had 18. It's the most we've ever had. There's churches on there. There's my doctor's on there. My dentist is on there. All landscaping, all kinds of different organizations, realtors, and orthopedics, as you can see. So, I'm here to ask you to consider or tell people about potentially joining a trip. I'm going to try to do 3 Kilimanjaro climbs in 2025, starting in June and July and September. And then if you would like to do a Colorado 14er or potentially Everest Base Camp, I'm not sure I'm going to continue that one. This will be the 5th year. It's a little harder to recruit for that one. It's not as high as Kilimanjaro, but I think Kilimanjaro just has more romance to it. And my contacts information is down there again, my Gmail and my cleanwaterclimb.org, my phone number, how to give if somebody, and read my bio. Like if you really want to get into the detail a little bit, just read it. If you go to my fundraising page, of course, it has kind of the whole history that I went through. And that's just a QR code that gets you to the same spot. So that's it. Now I'm going to stop now. If there was more time, I would have showed you some more pictures. I literally could give a talk on every year that I've been there.
Right. That's fantastic. Do we have any questions for Mike? Fabulous program.
It was very interesting. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, this is fantastic. And we Chuck is going to be sharing your contact information with all the members as well.
Right.
We can send you a thank you note for coming. But also we can, if you have questions, you can ask Mike directly there. But we do have a moment or two if anybody has any questions or anything.
Yeah, if anybody wants to know how long the trips are, how much it costs, anything like that. I mean, I told you what a well costs. It's $1,600, but other than that.
Do you have a website?
Yes.
What?
We do have the website. Yes. Tom will send it.
Yeah.
We'll send that to you. And I'm glad to hear that wells are still $1,600 because we were a Rotary. We were drilling wells 10 years ago in Central America for $1,000. So that's that's good that inflation's not killing us over there with the well drilling.
Well, just remember, we're just repairing wells.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas if you drill a well in Malawi, it's $5,000 at a minimum.
Wow.
But to repair, it's $1,600. So I always tell people, unless we have unlimited funds, we're probably not going to start drilling new ones until all the current ones are repaired. And but again, it's like the babies floating down the river. It never ends.
Right.
And there needs to be some big thing with that lake. I really think that's the answer.
Yep. Wow. It's a great story, and I appreciate you taking your time to share that with us as well. I appreciate that.
Okay, just pass the word. Maybe somebody wants to go to Africa and hike a mountain.
We appreciate that, Mike. Thank you so much, very much,
Okay.
guys. Well, guys, we're right at the end
Definitely,
of our hours. Is there any other announcements or anything? I don't think there's any major club business we have to take care of at this very moment. Chuck?
I put in the screenshot of his final slide with his contact information. I'll also be sending it out to everyone. And
I
maybe
appreciate
Mike, you can send me over your presentation if you don't mind,
Yes.
PDF of it.
Yeah, there's more of that. I need to figure out how to do that. It's big.
And then we'll also
Send me some kind of link, or I could put it on a Google Drive and share that folder. Would that work?
yes.
That would work.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna have Chuck email you on Monday the link to our YouTube channel.
Okay, that'd be great.
Once it gets posted, that way you can have that
Yeah.
as well.
And there were just two little errors I had in there where I think I had the date wrong by 2 years so I'm going to fix those and then I'll share it with you, Chuck.
No problem. All
Well-
right. Thank you so much. And I know where you live. We have to have coffee again.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks a
Well, I
lot.
appreciate it. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Well, we are at the
Tim?
end of our hours, guys. I want to thank y'all so very much for coming in. Bobby, I know we're gonna get to you in just a sec. Is there any other club business we need to cover real quick? Bobby, you had something you wanted to do, a presentation you wanted to present.
Yes, this would just take a couple of minutes if y'all could bear with me. Representing our Rotary Foundation as foundation chair, I wanted to just talk for a minute about the mission of the Rotary Foundation. As you know, we're supporting efforts of Rotary's fulfillment of the object of Rotary, which is Rotary's mission, and the achievement of world understanding and peace through local, national, and international humanitarian, educational, and cultural programs. The programs of the Rotary Foundation include an array of projects that save and invigorate the lives of people around the world and enhance international friendship and understanding. Foundation programs provide food, drinkable water, healthcare, immunizations, shelter, and educational opportunities for millions of persons. Differentiating Rotary from many other organizations, these activities are funded, implemented, and managed by Rotarians and Rotary clubs around the globe. We've long recognized Rotarians who contribute to the Rotary Foundation, which receives and disperses funds that support our cause of increasing world understanding and peace. We recognize them in many ways. Those who contribute a minimum of $100 per year are recognized as sustaining members. In the Lone Star Rotary E-Club, 100% of our members last year were sustaining members. At such time as their contributions total $1,000, they are recognized as Paul Harris Fellows in honor of Rotary's founder, and we present them with a certificate, a special pin, and a medallion. We now have over 1 million Paul Harris Fellows around the world. Becoming a Paul Harris Fellow, however, is a milestone, not a destination. We ask those who become Paul Harris Fellows to continue supporting the Rotary Foundation, and we recognize them as multiple Paul Harris Fellows at such time as they contribute an additional $1,000 to the Rotary Foundation. With each additional $1,000, they are presented with a pin with a stone, either a sapphire or a ruby, indicating the total level of their contributions. In our club, we have 8 members who have been previously recognized for such contributions. At such time as their total contribution is $10,000, they are recognized as major donors with a pin, with a diamond, and a special crystal. Today, we have the privilege of recognizing one of our club members for his wonderful support of the Rotary Foundation. Kent Hutchison, your contributions to the Rotary Foundation of Rotary International are allaying suffering, improving living conditions, and providing educational opportunities for young people somewhere in the world. Your gifts are truly selfless actions and demonstrate your commitment to our common goal of world understanding and peace. I'd like to show you a picture of what Kent is receiving. You can see that. Therefore, on behalf of the president of Rotary International and the chairman of the trustees of the Rotary Foundation, it gives me great pleasure to present you, Kent, a multiple Paul Harris Fellow lapel pin containing 2 rubies representing the achievement of Paul Harris Fellow +7 in appreciation of your generous contribution to the annual fund of the Rotary Foundation, and on their behalf, to extend our sincere thanks for your continued support of and commitment to the Rotary Foundation's mission. Congratulations, Kent.
Thank you, Bobby. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And as soon as I forgot that we were doing that tonight, and I was like, oh God, it's sitting on the pen is sitting on my back on my dresser. And I was like, oh, I hope Bobby has that picture. So
I have a picture.
thank you. I appreciate that. No, it's a great honor, and I want to encourage. I appreciate every one of our members contributing the $100 a year to the Rotary Foundation. And I want to encourage you each to continue consider giving at the level not only to the Rotary Foundation but also to our polio eradication fund. So I appreciate that. Thank y'all very much. Thank you, Bobby. I appreciate your efforts with the foundation. Thank you. Is there any other club business? If not, guys, I will.
Yes, I want to make sure we had our proposal submitted for the grant.
Yeah, but yes, it's been submitted. It's been sent in.
Great.
It's been mailed in. Today was the deadline, so we had to get everything in. Fantastic. Any other questions? Any other business? And Tia, we appreciate you and Bobby working on that. Thank you so much for working on that grant. Fantastic work. Fantastic. Thank you guys so much, and we will see y'all at the next meeting. Thank y'all.
Bye-bye.
Good to see everyone. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thanks, Mike. Everyone
Have a
else.
great Labor Day.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Welcome.